You are here for 30-minute slow flow yoga. I'm Jen. I do have my yoga blocks like always. Really not a lot of prop suggested opportunities, but please use them whenever it works for you. Maybe a light set of dumbbells instead. And then we'll take a seated stretch at the end where it might be helpful to have a little height under your hips. For me, a rolled up blanket works great for that. So I have that off to the side. So with those things said, let's make the most of our time. I'm going to restart some music and let's connect as we do, coming to be on your back when your body feels ready, where we'll take a little chance to explore, get a little movement in the body while we have this really amazing support of the ground for our back, for our head, for our shoulders. And perhaps that's kind of where you start in. As you come to lie on your back, no rush. Maybe see how it feels to kind of wiggle around through your upper body. So you're putting your shoulder blades kind of where they belong in your back. I know sometimes we don't always realize our shoulders are scrunching up. So I'm going to kind of wiggle my shoulder blades down into my back body and just even imagine your neck getting a little longer. Maybe you turn your head a bit side to side. Maybe you have bent knees to kind of sway and shift across the small of the back. But just starting right away with this kind of softening across the front of your shoulders, your chest, letting your upper body melt a little bit into the floor. I'm also going to lift my forearms off the ground and just roll around through the wrists and wiggle the fingers. So even depending on what your day has been thus far, and even throughout practice, right, we do find a bit of wrist flexion. So I'm just going to move around there as well. And then as you feel ready, trying to keep your shoulder blades again relatively kind of down in your back. I'm going to alternate one arm reaching overhead with a slight tilt and look of my head that same direction and then switching. So it is kind of, I'll sit up so you can see even though you're on your back. So I'm kind of doing these side reaches, knowing I'm on the ground. So there's kind of more, maybe more limited range of motion and kind of just feeling what your shoulder blades need as you are on your sticky mat, right? Things tend to get a little stuck in the body. Take a few more rounds there. And then when you're ready, let's bring arms at your sides and start to take kind of swaying knees to maybe start to lift them up. And I am going to invite you to keep the arms down if that works for you. And it might not feel like you move much then, but that's kind of the idea. Could we start to make circular movements one direction and another? And I'm really trying to pay attention here that my back isn't arching. So I'm starting to feel that little draw in of my lower ribs toward the ground to find some stability through the spine, but get this movement at the hips without adding pull or tug. Could you do these movements a few breaths longer with your arms floating off the floor? Just kind of see what that might take for just a little bit more strength around your torso. Find some breath. And then as you're ready, let's take the legs up toward the ceiling. Feel your hip bones press down in your feet. Extend, flex, and point the feet. Maybe pedal the legs, getting this space in your body, feeling into the hamstrings. And I'm just going to reposition myself as we take a few more opportunities here on our back. I'm going to pause with the legs lifted, bring hands to outer thighs, and guide into a wide V inner thigh welcoming stretch. So that's why I'm holding my legs. So you can kind of feel hopefully in your body where your inner thighs start to find some space. I love to flex and point my feet here as well. And maybe roll around through the ankles, feeling your tailbone press to the floor. And then a little combination of maybe strength of inner thighs and hands. I'm going to guide the legs back up. Keep your legs fairly active. It doesn't mean they have to be fully straight, but kind of feel some energy through your feet. And I'm going to crisscross the legs over and over again. You might do this with the toes out, so open hips. You might do this with the toes more inward, and you might kind of keep the hips neutral, but you could explore a little bit with even how the angle of the legs are. But I hope you're finding that little moment where maybe your outer thigh gets a brief little stretch. And then we'll hug the knees back in. Let's do this as a wind releasing hug. So hands on shins or backs of thighs. Give a little squeeze of your knees toward your chest or maybe wider off of the sides of your body. And then returning to movement of your spine to eventually start to come upright. So you might rock and roll side to side and turn and lay on a side and push up. You might rock and roll along your spine. Take your time to make a choice that serves your back, your body. We pause briefly upright. Let the blood flow shift in the body. We'll revisit sitting toward the end. Let's for now come to tabletop pose. Taking your time to get yourself to face what you've decided to be the top of your mat. with your body kind of backed up a bit from the top of the mat, fingers spread nice and wide, and starting to find movement of your spine. I like to let the tops of my feet rest here. I like starting with cows and cats to create that kind of flexion and extension of the spine. I also enjoy closing my eyes if that feels available. There just becomes this way I find myself paying more attention to little areas of my body when I tune out kind of that visual input. One suggestion is to also maybe move your cows and cats laterally. So if you're not sure what that means, I'm kind of rounding and dropping the belly gently, going side to side and then switching directions. And just kind of see if that feels interesting to you, giving your spine an opportunity to move all the different ways it's designed to move. And then as you're ready, can we pause in tabletop? I'm going to curl my toes under this time, starting by sliding one arm straight ahead and send your tailbone back. So kind of single arm puppy pose. And then I'm going to switch, sliding one arm forward, stretching my tailbone back. You might start to make this a side stretch. So when my left arm goes forward, I'm going to cross it in front of my right hand and then send my hips back, go back to tabletop, and then switch. So if that kind of reach across also feels interesting, go ahead. You're not trying to get a certain distance, just creating that space, feeling your ribs expand, your side body expand. And as you feel kind of realigned and neutral, let's take a pass at full puppy pose. So toes are still curled under, hands go forward, wide or narrow. Let your chest soften as your tailbone lifts. Feel a press through your palms really active. So it feels like your kind of armpits are lifting toward the ceiling and your head is dropping through. And I hope it doesn't feel super jarring when I say the word armpit. I feel like it does, but that was a really cue I wanted to say. Take a big breath in and a big breath out. Make your way back to tabletop pose. I just find armpit doesn't follow the flow of yoga, but it is a part of the body. So when you're ready from tabletop pose, we're going to work through the hips a bit. And this could be a place, I'm going to put my blocks in front of my hands. You might find yourself wanting a little height here shortly, but for now I'm in tabletop. And see if you can shift your weight a little bit more to the left knee to just kind of lift your right knee off the ground and make small circles again of the hips. So it's almost like you're tracing a circular shape with your knee on the floor, keeping the back pretty stable and still. Get a little stir of your core so you're not relying on your arms. And then could we lift up that right leg and stack it over the left? I'll face you and just give yourself this hopefully big exhale, spacious right side body. We typically talk about keeping the shoulders level here, but you might actually bend your left elbow, rotate to lift up your right shoulder and maybe peek over the right side of your mat. See how that feels to get a little bit more rotation here. And then let's carefully unwind. Can you set the right toes down next to your right knee? Turn the right knee out. And I'm going to move my hips back in front a bit. This may be where you want to kind of crawl yourself onto your blocks. I sometimes don't realize that my lower back needs a little bit of support with this hip shape. So feel free to do so. And then we're going to actually try to lift from here. So I'm going to shift my weight back. I'm going to start to lift up my torso and see if I can rise kind of in this knee tree pose. I'm going to face you. So we still have the knee open on the tippy toes, if that's okay. Feel that knee draw behind you. Feel again a little hug in of your low ribs because it might feel a little wobbly if you're on the tippy toes. And then can we carefully rotate the right knee to face forward? I'm going to stay on the tippy toes just briefly. And then we'll bring right knee next to left. And we'll take a flow to rinse it out. Take a big breath up. Thoughtful hinge at the hips to land your hands in tabletop pose. Give yourself a little movement in tabletop. Shimmy side to side or front to back so you can return to what feels like your really strong neutral spine. And then from here, for now, my hands are on the mat. A little more weight in your right knee to just kind of barely lift that left knee off the floor. And again, make a couple of circles, one direction and another. So we're starting really small here on purpose, just to feel movement where we've got lots of stability in the spine. I'll start to face you. And then when you're ready, lift up that left bent knee and stack it over your right. So really opening that left side body. Feel free to roll around through the ankle. Feel free to soften your shoulders and maybe you create that purposeful tilt where your right elbow bends more and you rotate a bit to look over your left shoulder, just if that feels right to create a little more space. And then as you level out your body, can we touch the left toes down kind of next to your right knee and then start to turn the knee open and then feel some movement front to back. And again, I can tell right away that's a lot for my hips sometimes, and my back tends to take the brunt of it if I don't raise my hands up. So just kind of noticing where that might be helpful to really lift through your heart and chest. And then as your hips go back, can we start to lighten the weight on the hands to start to rise up strong through your back again to this knee tree pose. I have to say that really thoughtfully, knee tree. Feel that opening at your hip, a little balance. I hope if you're on the tippy toes, so you might have to feel kind of some of that energy of wrapping into your waist a bit to keep that stability. And then knee turns to face the front. So maybe a little balance on the toes, and then left knee next to right. Let's fully rinse out. Take a big breath up. Thoughtful hinge back to tabletop. I'm going to move my blocks out of the way. Take a little added movement here if you'd like. We haven't done any cobras so far today, so if you'd like to find a cobra variation, you could come to a low plank and find that really upright cobra. I like to lower to the belly first and work ground up, especially early on. And you don't have to take those variations. Feel free to stay in tabletop or even drop to the forearms to find some cows and cats. As you start to settle in, the offer is to take a pass in a child's pose, just to kind of see how much space we've started to create in the body. I think a lot of us widen the knees. You don't have to. Seeing how it feels to let the hips settle back. So your knees can be as close together or as wide as supports the stretch that you're probably feeling in a lot of places. See if you can relax your forearms down. Feel free to shift a bit here. Maybe see how it feels to take a breath in that expands the back of your ribs, and an exhale that softens your heart toward the mat. When you're ready, let's make our way back to tabletop pose, where we'll head to the top of the mat to stand. I'm going to set a block in front, and as always, I'll offer for down dog along the way if you'd like. So curling toes under from tabletop, feel that same intention we had in puppy pose, where your spine lengthens, your head kind of falls between your hands, your knees bend a lot to really help you elongate the spine. Feel free to pedal the legs, to shake the head yes and no. And if you realize this just doesn't feel supportive today, come back to knees in puppy pose, because that's exactly the shape that we're creating. When you're ready, if you do have knees down, float them briefly. Let's look to the top of the mat and walk. And you might feel a stretch in your legs as you walk, coming onto fingertips, lifting hands as you get close to the top. Halfway lift, feet under hips, hands pressed somewhere, shins, thighs, block, or dumbbell. I've been really enjoying cow and cat movements here to just check back in with where my back is. You could head to ragdoll. Knowing that you can widen your feet, I tend to hang on to my block this entire time and just change the height of it. You could sway, you can let the head hang. And quite often, if I want priority here to be my spine, I usually bend my knees more. The longer the legs are, more typically you'll find stretch in hamstrings. So it's whatever your body prefers. And then stand really thoughtfully. So rolling up really slow, head last, or drop hips, lift heart, and kind of reverse swan dive your way to rise. Take your time, just like we did when we came off of the ground. We paused to be sitting. Now we pause to be tall. And then for the time being, let's just kind of make sure blocks and dumbbells are out of the way. We really don't need any props while we're standing today. And then from here, from the top of your mat, let's put a little bit more weight into your left foot and see if you can lift up your right knee, finding single leg Tadasana, and just kind of explore where your range of motion is, because the offer is going to be to bring your fingertips underneath your right thigh and just see if you can gently lift a little higher. Barely using your fingertips, but kind of that inside of, ooh, maybe I can go a little higher with just that touch of the legs. And then we'll slowly lower the right leg down and step it way back, land the foot behind you, turn the right foot, and turn your body to the right to set up a warrior two stance. So we want to be on a balance beam, heel to arch, left toes forward, right toes turned. Coming into warrior two, we're going to play a little bit here with hands in back pockets or behind your back. I'm going to turn profile to just kind of show a little play in the hips. What might it feel like to turn your back hip a little bit forward and then maybe turn it to the side? And as I do this, you might be able to see my left knee is moving quite a bit. The invite here is to turn slightly forward if that helps you open the left knee. So your right hip might be a little bit more to the front corner of your mat. Use your right foot really strong to see if you can then sit your hips closer to the floor. Yes, big breath in, big breath out, unwind. Reverse triangle, legs long, left arm up, right arm down. Could we bend the left elbow, fingertips hovering by your ear? And I'm gonna rotate my torso to look kind of behind me and open again. This for me is mostly just my upper back moving. You can turn your hips as well, but see if you can move the torso or move the elbow with your chest, not like winging, right? Not just moving at the shoulder. And then we'll pause to bring ourselves upright. I'm gonna walk my right foot up a little closer to the left foot and then turn to a high crescent lunge. So hopefully we can be all 10 toes forward. If it feels better to flatten your right foot, feel free. Otherwise, up on the tippy toes. Take just a moment here to find a stretch that serves you. Sometimes I like to tuck if my hip flexors and quadriceps are tight. Sometimes I like to lift kind of the right hamstring toward the ceiling. I do encourage you to keep a little bend in the right knee if your lower back is feeling sensitive today. And then can we head back to single leg Tadasana? You might walk, you might just power up to float the right knee in front again. I'm gonna start to face you, but then let's see if we can open the knee to the side. You might play again with trying to lift a little higher because we're going to convert this to tree pose. So this could be your way of gauging where you want to set your right foot against your left leg. You can help it come above the knee, but if that really was a big shift of where you could get on your own, I would go lower. Just don't press into the left knee. Feel free to grow some branches here. I kind of like this shape where I try to make it wobbly, right? Because the risk reward is all you do is you land that foot down. So I find there's high reward for low risk, and we train our body how to react if we do ever get off balance. And then when you're ready, just a careful turn again of your knee forward and set it down. I'm going to take those wide elbows and gently twist my torso side to side. The main reason for this position of the arms is to feel your chest expand. So especially if we have colder temperatures, if we've been just kind of hunched in, we're finding rotation of the spine, but also really opening the front body. And then as you're ready, we'll meet at the top of the mat to go that second side. So from the top of your mat, feet hip distance, rooting down through right foot to lift and stair step the left knee. This is called active range of motion. So where you can get when you have to kind of work to hold that knee up, a little passive by putting fingertips underneath the thigh and maybe just helping a little bit. So I'm not pulling, but just kind of trying to see what happens if I give a little encouragement. And then we'll send that left leg way, way back, landing the foot to then flatten the left foot and feel your turn of body to the left side of your space to set up warrior two. So again, my hope is your feet kind of feel like they're in a balance beam. Right toes forward, left toes might be slightly angled to the front, dropping down, hands in back pockets or clasp. And we'll take that same little experiment with the hips. What would it feel like to turn your back left hip a little bit more forward, or then turn you more to the side? And my torso's turning a little bit here. But the reason for that emphasis of turning to hold with your left hip slightly forward is so your right knee can be open. When that right knee kind of drops inward, that can create stress on the knee. And then we get that hope of feeling that opening at the right hip joint. Could you tuck your left hip under your left shoulder and maybe sit closer to the floor? Yeah, big breath in. Big breath out. We untangle the arms, reverse triangle, right arm up, left arm down, legs strong but not locked. And then that brief bend of right elbow to rotate, again, your upper back perhaps only, or maybe your hips are going to turn with you. And just this little bit of wringing out and rinsing out, spine health, shoulder range of motion. And again, that kind of elbow bend to keep the heart really expanded. And then we'll pause, hands at heart. I'm going to step my left foot up a little closer to my right first, and then turn to set up high crescent lunge. I find that transition is a little bit easier when my feet are closer together. Do make sure though that you create that width of your feet left and right. So give yourself a nice wide base to create a moment to pause and a stretch that serves your lower body. A little tuck, a little lift, right? All those different ways of shifting, and you might even kind of feel just a little dynamic here for a few more breaths. And then we'll head back to single leg Tadasana, left knee lifted. Maybe you kind of power off and try to go straight there. Maybe it's a couple of steps. I'm going to face you. Can we turn our hip open? Maybe play with where that height is to help you gauge where you want to connect for your tree pose. And it might be a different height. So you might be able to tell the range of motion feels a little different. The goal of tree is not the highest knee you can have, by the way. And maybe again, you play with arms moving. Maybe you just kind of constantly create this stir, or perhaps it feels really welcome to try to find some stillness today. You could also explore with closing your eyes. That makes me really wobbly, which is sort of fun to play with. I hope it feels fun, this resilience we can build with, again, high reward for low risk. And then let's free up the left foot, turn the knee forward one more time. Do you feel that hip close off? And then left foot next to right. I'm going to take a couple of looser arm rotations here quick. And I'm also going to work through the feet just really briefly. I'm going to walk heel, heel, toe, toe a couple of times just to kind of work out some of the bottom of the feet, the toes, the ankles. And you might even pause to roll out one ankle and then another. I guess that's one more bonus balance opportunity. Ooh, I heard noises. And anyone else get some noises on some movements? And then when you're ready, we're going to come back down and take a couple of grounded stretches. So let's meet back at the top of the mat. I'm going to set my block right in front again to just kind of unwind how we started. Though it's only been a short time, a lot has shifted in the body. So we'll really tune in here. Take a big breath up, and a thoughtful hinge brings you maybe again to more of that halfway lift where your heart is up, your chin is up, your spine is long, maybe ragdoll, maybe dynamic movement, maybe stillness. Use this as kind of a, right? I like to talk about exhales that are more than just your lungs. Let your body rinse and release somehow. And then as you're ready, tabletop pose. I usually lift my chin and heart and then try to guide myself back. So as I step back, I have this, again, kind of strong position of my back. Backing away from the top of your mat and taking a final round of movement here that serves you best. It could be just a few breaths moving in tabletop. Maybe you realize, again, a variation of cobra would feel really lovely to your back body to expand through your heart. Perhaps one more pass at a downward facing dog would really serve your spine, your head. Maybe you're going to head to child's pose. I do want to offer just a little added stretch from a child's pose if making your way there feels okay. From a child's pose, if you're there, and you can choose a different variation of this if not in child's pose, I'm going to take my right arm and do a thread the needle, sweep it through to the left side, palm up. I find it sometimes interesting to come to thread the needle from child's pose because we're already pretty softened to the ground. Now you could take that left arm, I'm going to lift it onto the fingertips and walk it toward the right corner of my mat and kind of lift up my left shoulder again. So a little added kind of side body stretch with your child's pose if it gives some value to your body. So don't force any of these suggestions, just some place to explore. I'm going to unwind, level out my hands, come back to child's pose briefly, and then I'm actually going to sit up. So child's pose in my body, though restorative, I feel it expires after a while. So I'm going to just take some time out of child's pose. We're going to clearly do the other side, and you could be staying in child's pose. But then as you're ready, we'll take that thread the needle offering if you did try it on the other side. So settling back, sweeping left arm under, palm up. I hope you feel kind of the weight of your body resting on your upper left arm, so not dumping into the elbow. And maybe you're lifting up that right arm, walking your fingertips to the left corner of your mat. You might lift your right shoulder. So just creating some added stretch and opening in right side body, which might put a little bit more weight again into left shoulder. Take a few more breaths. And then that slow unwind to eventually come up, maybe again to sit on the feet briefly, but we will eventually come to sit. So I'm going to start to just help myself drop over to one side. And I'm going to sit facing the long edge because we're going to take a wide position of the legs. You're welcome to do the same. So as you come to settle in, a couple things, maybe have a block or dumbbell. And as you come to see how this kind of wide shape of the legs feels, you could sit up on a blanket. So sometimes that slight lift at the hips can kind of tilt the pelvis forward in a way that can feel more welcoming, especially to the back. So straightening the legs as much as they feel they can be. So we often do a standing wide fold. We're going to mimic that here. So if we were standing, your feet wouldn't move. So as we do this, you can keep your toes facing the ceiling. So usually when we come into this, I try to hinge at the waist with my heart lifted, my spine long. Maybe you then just kind of land your hands out in front of you. Maybe some of you sometimes take that wide fold with more of a ragdoll approach, so you could certainly find that surrender down. And I'm kind of hugging my block as a way to give maybe head to rest or forearms. But as you find a place to stay, and it doesn't matter what you're doing with your spine, it's your choice, the toes will sometimes drift forward. So can you kind of keep those hips opening so your toes are pointed to the ceiling? Just finding your stretch. Take a few more breaths. If anything is feeling like it's getting more stressed, use that as a cue to make an adjustment. And then as we do when we're kind of hinged from standing, really thoughtfully rise through your back body. I'm going to help one leg bend and then the other. I'm going to move my block out of the way because I did use it. And then I'm going to start to find windshield wiper movements just really gently at first. But I wonder as we go, maybe you're able to eventually surrender kind of both legs to one side and perhaps sweep the opposite arm across your body. So just giving your hips a little rinse, your knees maybe an added stretch, and then your spine gets one more kind of dose of movement here. Take a few more rounds to breathe, to stretch, to explore. And then as you're ready, we'll meet to take just a few moments on our back to give our hips kind of one more rinse in the other direction. So I'm going to come to have feet at the top of the mat. You don't need anything, but if you have that time to even linger and rest, feel free to put on socks or a sweatshirt, and we'll start to make our way to return to our back. Take your time. I like to hold my legs to really acknowledge. You can tell, right? Some of our practice, we have really deliberate movement for the spine. Sometimes it's more indirect, but let your back realign on your mat. Let yourself start to feel that connection back to the ground beneath you. Let those shoulder blades soften away from your ears as we did before. And we'll take a little Herschel supine on your back, eagle pose for the legs to just kind of squeeze and rinse out and reset a bit through the hips. So let's bring the feet a little closer, knees bent. I'm going to turn to goat profile here. Let's take the right leg up toward the ceiling. There's a lot of ways to come into this. This is just my suggestion today. And then try to cross the leg. So right leg is going over to the left knee is going over to the right. Then bend your right knee, help your legs potentially lift. And then I still usually have to move them around. So kind of feeling this connection leg to leg, like you're cross-legged, laying on your back. Maybe your hands gently give a gentle kind of pull down at the shins or the ankles. Take a few more breaths here with the suggestion of making this kind of a detoxifying, almost tense and release. I'm going to squeeze my knees a little closer to my chest. Your tailbone might even lift up. You might even lift your chin and even pull with your biceps and just kind of squeeze yourself into a tiny ball. Feel free to even scrunch up your face and your forehead, and then use an inhale to open everything back up, landing your feet back down. Maybe you take just a breath or two where you try not to move, but let your belly soften. And then how about just a little tiny shift, almost hip bone to hip bone, just kind of move slightly through your lower back, maybe then a little bit more sway of the knees. Maybe you stretch your arms up over your head briefly to create a little length in opposition to that tense, but then we'll come back to try the other side. Feet close together, knees bent, left leg will lift. Crossing left leg over right, so trying to cross the legs, but then let that left knee bend, and maybe you help the legs lift. And I usually still have to kind of move them around. So just find that place where you feel a little cross-legged, hips going inward, maybe a gentle grab at shins or ankles. Feel that softening tug if that feels right to the knees in particular. And then maybe you get just a little more scrunchy. This is such a good detoxifying shape. So you might scrunch your chin up. So even an upper body crunch, knees a little closer to the chest, where we feel this really tight compression along the torso, like you're massaging out your inner organs, literally rinsing out to release and detoxify. And then when you're ready, take a breath that helps you open it all up, landing the feet back down carefully. Let your belly soften. Take a little moment to sway again through the knees. And perhaps after all of that, it would feel really inviting to take a full body stretch where the legs go long. I usually like mine more out to the corners. Maybe arms stretch, or it might feel nice to reach your arms overhead with your knees bent. Take a few breaths, just taking up some space, letting yourself surrender into the floor. And this is where we'll take our time to draw attention to close, knowing that my wish for you is always to extend a time and rest. But if you'd like to join me, I'm going to bring one hand over my heart, the other palm at my forehead. Give a little press into both parts, this reconnection of brain, body, breath, giving that a big breath in and a thoughtful breath out. And then perhaps pressing both palms together with your thumb knuckles over your forehead. It is here that I thank you immensely for making time for your practice today. Wishing you so much peace and ease. The light and love in me sees, honors, and bows to the love and light in each and every one of you. Namaste. As always.